Hello class, welcome back to the Chong channel. Right now I'm going to go over how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, and I'm going to do this step by step. Well, first thing you need to understand is when someone tells you to solve a quadratic equation, that in itself has a lot of meaning. To solve a quadratic equation, we are solving for the x values when y equals 0. Now in the region, sometimes they tend to use different vocabulary words, so they might say something like roots, zeros. So roots, zeros are the x values when y equals 0. So already in that definition, we found out that the y must be 0, and so we're going to set this equal to 0. So the opposite of positive 5 is minus 5. What you do on the right, you do to the left. And so right now we got y equals 0, and now we're just going to simplify on the left side. So 2x squared stays as 2x squared, minus 3x stays as minus 3x. And then we're going to combine like terms here. We got negative 15 minus 5, and that's going to be negative 20. So I'm going to set my values for a, b, and c. So a is the coefficient of x squared. B is the coefficient of x, and it's negative 3. And c is the constant, and in this case, it's negative 20. Now let's just go over the quadratic formula. So right here on the right side, the quadratic formula is actually given on the reference sheet of the Regents. However, I do make my students memorize it, and you basically use the Pop Goes the Weasel tune. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so one thing you need to understand is when you're plugging in your values for a, b, and c, you must use parentheses. So first thing we have x equals negative. So anything that's in the formula, I'm going to keep it blue, but when I plug in my values for a, b, and c, I'm going to write it in black. So our b value is negative 3. And then going back to blue, plus or minus square root. So now I'm going to plug in my value for b, so that's going to be negative 3 squared minus 4. And because I want to plug in that value for a, I'm going to put it in parentheses. And then I'm going to plug in my value for c, so I'm going to put parentheses negative 20. So if you see here, so far, anything that's in the formula, I kept it blue. And anytime I plugged in my value for a, b, and c, we put it in black and in parentheses. And this is all going to be all over 2a. And the a here is parentheses 2. So when you simplify this, what you need to understand is that you're going to, here we have negative times negative 3, and that's a positive 3, plus or minus square root. I am not going to put square root in the calculator, but I will put all the other stuff, the stuff that's inside here, in the calculator. So literally, we put negative 3 in parentheses squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 20. And when I put all of that in a calculator, I get 169. All over, and then I have 2 times 2, which is 4. So here we have 3 plus or minus, and now I'm going to put this in the calculator. You do the square root of 169, and the square root of 169 is 13. All over 4. Now, what you need to understand is when we say quadratic equation, that means we have x squared, which means there's 2 x's as our answer, just like we said x values when y equals 0. So we have more than one answer here, and it's going to be 2. So here we have 3 plus 13. So I'm going to write 3 plus 13 over 4. And we also have another version, 3 minus 13 over 4. So let me write that down, 3 minus 13 over 4. So I put this in the calculator. I have 3 plus 13, and that's going to be 16 divided by 4, and that's equal to 4. So that's my 0, or that's my root, or that's my x value when y equals 0. Now I'm going to simplify the right side over here. 3 minus 13. 3 minus 13, I get negative 10. And negative 10 divided by 4, I put this in the calculator and I get negative 2.5. So here we have my x values is 4 and negative 2.5. These are my zeros. These are my roots. And they're the x values when y equals 0. I hope that helped. Bye-bye.